My daughter handed me my two grandchildren on a rainy Thursday and said she just needed an hour to clear her head. That was 13 years ago. The coffee on the table was still warm when her car fishtailed out of the driveway and took the last of my peace with it. She did not come back that night, or that week, or that year. I fed them. I walked floors with them when they had fevers. I learned to braid hair with fingers that used to only know wrenches and steel. I grew old in the space where their mother should have stood. And this morning she finally came back to my front porch. She did not come alone. She brought a tactical team, a camera crew, a lawyer in a suit that cost more than my truck, and one accusation: that I had stolen her children. Before I tell you what happened next, subscribe the channel and let me know in the comments. Where are you watching from? It helps more than you know. They thought I would crumble. They saw a 66-year-old man with stiff knees and a faded flannel, easy to knock down and easy to blame. What they did not see was the thing taped under the floorboard at the foot of my bed. A thin yellow envelope that had been waiting 13 long years for this exact morning. My name is Gideon Parrish. I spent 40 years running cranes on the docks in Harborview, Oregon, lifting steel containers in storms that made younger men quit. These days, my back aches when it rains and my fingers crack when I close them too tight, but my hands are still steady. They had to be, because my grandkids' lives were balanced on them. That day started like any other slow Sunday. The house smelled like frying potatoes and strong coffee. The electric kettle hissed on the counter. Out in the hallway, 2 bedroom doors were closed, light spilling out under the cracks. Inside those rooms slept my entire reason for waking up. Juniper is 16 now, taller than she realizes, always shoving her hair up into a loose knot like she is too busy for mirrors. She reads court cases for fun and has opinions on everything. Eli is 11, all elbows and curiosity, a kid who will take apart a toaster just to see how the springs work. When my daughter Raina dropped them here, Eli was still in diapers and Juniper only cried when she could not see her mother. Now they barely say her name. I flipped the omelet the way Eli likes it, half moon and golden, and thought about the week's budget. I get a pension check and a little disability. After the mortgage, heat, and feeding 2 almost bottomless teenagers, there is just enough left to slide a few dollars into an envelope for Juniper's college jar. It is a lean life, but it is ours. It has laughter in it. It has history. The knock on the door did not sound like a knock. It sounded like somebody hitting the world with a hammer. The whole house shuddered. A photo fell off the wall and the glass cracked across Juniper's 4th grade smile. For a second I froze, spatula still in my hand, grease popping behind me. Then the front door exploded inward. The sound was a boom that lived somewhere beyond my hearing, more felt than heard. Splinters shot across the hall like angry birds. Men in black gear flooded my living room, boots pounding, voices overlapping in a storm of orders. Hands where we can see them. On the ground! Step away from the stove! My first thought was not for myself. It was for the 2 sleeping kids at the end of the hall. I dropped the spatula and moved toward their rooms, palms up. There are children here, I shouted. Do not scare them, please. There are children. A shoulder slammed into my back. The floor came up fast and hard. My cheek hit the cold tile and my chest lit up with pain like someone had dropped an anchor on it. Rough hands grabbed my wrists and yanked them behind me. Metal tightened over my skin with a ratcheting sound that cut straight through the fog in my head. Stay down, sir. Do not move. I am not resisting, I managed. Just do not hurt the kids. A small cry split the air. Juniper's door flew open. She stumbled out in an oversized sweatshirt, hair a wild halo, eyes wide with sleep and terror. Grandpa! Stay back, June, I wheezed. Do not move, sweetheart. One of the officers turned his head just enough to see her. His face softened for half a heartbeat, then went hard again. 2 others swept down the hall toward her. Behind them, Eli's door creaked. That was when the officers parted like a tide pushed by something colder than the ocean. Heels clicked on broken wood. Perfume cut through the smell of dust and gun oil. I did not have to look up to know who it was. I knew that walk. I had heard it on kitchen linoleum when she was 16 and furious at the world. Raina stepped into my ruined living room like it was a film set. 13 years ago, she was all hollow cheeks and shaking hands, smelling of cheap vodka and stale smoke. The woman standing over me now wore a camel-colored coat that probably came with its own security tag and sunglasses that had never seen a discount rack. Her hair was glossy, her lips painted, her nails manicured into small, perfect points. She took off the sunglasses slowly as if she had rehearsed this reveal. Her eyes were dry, sharp, and full of something that looked like hatred and victory mixed together. "There," she said, pointing at me, voice rising above the chaos. "That is him, officer. That is the man who took my children." The word took hooked into me, sharp and wrong. I did not take them. I had picked them up off the floor where she left them. But in that moment, with my face against my own kitchen tiles and handcuffs biting into my wrists, nobody was interested in the truth. Not yet, because the truth was not in this room. It was hidden in an envelope under an old piece of wood, waiting for the right judge and the right question to finally crack Raina's story open. And if they thought dragging me out in front of the cameras would be the end of this, they had no idea what they were really waking up. They hauled me out of my own house like a criminal, my grandkids screaming in the doorway. And all I could think about was the night 13 years earlier when Raina begged me to hide something for her, something she swore no one could ever see. When my daughter, Sarah, pulled out of my driveway that cold autumn morning, her taillights blinking through the fog until they vanished, I thought she'd be back in a week. Maybe 2. I told myself she just needed air, space, time to untangle her life after everything her partner had put her through. I believed her when she said she was heading west to get stable. I wanted to believe it. I needed to. I was 66 then, still working part-time at the repair yard near Harbor Cross, still convincing myself that my bones were younger than they were. I'd raised children before, sure, but raising grandchildren, 2 of them, both under 3, was a different storm entirely. But when Sarah kissed them goodbye and told them she loved them, I never imagined those would be the last words they'd hear from her for a very long time. For the first week, I kept my phone in my breast pocket, volume turned high. Every vibration, every buzz, I jumped. But the calls never came. Instead, it was the children who made the first noises that broke me. Little Junie, barely old enough to form sentences, climbed into my lap with her thumb in her mouth and whispered, "Mama gone?" I held her, nodded gently, told her, "Just for now." But even then, some part of me knew just for now had already stretched into something else. By the second week, I started noticing things Sarah had left behind. Her old denim jacket draped over the banister, the cracked sunglasses she used to wear everywhere, a watercolor painting Junie had done of their old apartment, small artifacts of a life she didn't plan on rescuing. The third week was when I finally heard from someone, just not my daughter. Her partner called me, and his voice was the kind that made your hands curl into fists. Cold, calculated, dangerous in a quiet way. I still don't know how he found my number, but when I picked up, all he said was, "She ain't coming back to you." I tried to keep my voice steady. "What do you mean?" "You heard me," he said. "She knows what happens if she tries." My stomach turned to stone. "Are you threatening her?" Silence. A long exhale. "You don't want to know, old man." And then he hung up. I stared at the phone, trying to understand how a human being could be so hollow inside. I wanted to call the police, but what would I tell them? That a man with no fixed address, no legal name on record, no proof of anything had said something sinister over the phone? They'd pat my shoulder, take notes, and move on. So I focused on the kids. Our days settled into a rhythm. Morning porridge, walks to the park, washing tiny socks that disappeared into even tinier corners of the laundry room. At night, after both children finally fell asleep, Junie curled up like a kitten, her brother tucked under his blanket clutching that stuffed fox. I sat alone in the kitchen sipping lukewarm tea, staring at my phone, hoping it would light up with her name. Months passed. Seasons shifted. The kids grew, learned new words, forgot others, and with every new milestone, first full sentences, first time tying a shoe, first scraped knee, I felt joy woven tightly with grief. I kept telling myself, she's coming back. She has to. But grief taught me something brutally honest. Sometimes the people you love don't get better. Sometimes they don't come back. Still, I raised those kids as if she might walk through my door any moment. I never spoke poorly of her. I didn't let bitterness settle into my voice. I kept her photo on the mantel because the children needed hope, even if I had lost mine. Then, 10 years later, 10 long years of school pickups, doctor visits, birthdays with lopsided cakes and candles blown out in crooked wishes. My phone rang. The name on the screen nearly knocked the breath out of me. Sarah. My hand shook as I answered. "Dad," she said, her voice thin, breathless. "Where are my kids?" That question, those 5 little words, pulled the world out from under me. Because she didn't ask if they were safe. She didn't ask how they'd grown, what they liked, or if they remembered her. She asked where they were, like she believed I'd taken something from her. Like I was the one who disappeared. And before I could respond, she added something that turned my blood cold. "Why did you keep them from me?" What my daughter said next would twist everything. My memories, my guilt, and even the truth I thought I knew, into something I never saw coming. When Sarah asked me why I kept her children from her, the question didn't land like confusion. It landed like strategy. Like she was reading from a script someone handed her. Before I could even breathe, she continued, her voice shaking, but not from emotion, from anger. "I've been trying to find them for years," she said. "Lawyers told me you hid them, you changed your number, you refused contact." That wasn't just a lie, it was a lie crafted with precision, because I hadn't changed my number in 20 years. "Sarah," I said slowly, "what are you talking about? You left them with me. You never came back." She inhaled sharply like someone taking in air before a dive. "I never left," she whispered. "I was running. I was trying to stay alive. You were supposed to keep them for a week, not steal them. Steal them." That word was going to haunt me. Before I could answer, she spoke again, faster now, rushing through thoughts as if someone was timing her. "I'm coming tomorrow," she said. "And I'm not coming alone. You need to be ready." Then the line went dead. I stayed in the kitchen long after that call, tea cooling in my hands. Outside, the yard was quiet. The kids were building a fort out of old boxes, arguing about whether a dragon or a robot should guard the front gate. Childhood has a way of shielding itself, even when the foundations crack beneath it. I thought about Sarah's voice. Not the words. Those I could analyze. It was her tone that cut through me. Fear. Real fear. Not of me. Of something behind her. Her partner. The man who had threatened her years earlier. The man with no records, no address, no history but violence. The man she had once sworn she was free from. Maybe she was never free. Maybe she hadn't abandoned her children out of neglect. Maybe she was pushed away. That night I checked every lock twice. Then 3 times. I walked down the hall and stood in each child's doorway, watching the rise and fall of their breathing. Junie slept curled around a stack of textbooks. Her brother, Elias, held the stuffed fox that had survived a decade of love. They were safe now, but for how long? I barely slept. I kept hearing her voice on a loop. "I'm coming tomorrow. You need to be ready." By morning I knew I needed answers. Not assumptions, not guesses, real answers. So I unlocked the old cedar chest in my bedroom, the one with my wife's initials carved into the lid. Inside was the thing I had kept hidden for over a decade. The small, battered notebook Sarah had shoved into my hands the night she left. She hadn't said what was in it, only, "Hide this. If he finds it, everything ends." I had never opened it. I felt like it was a betrayal just to touch it. But now it might be the only truth I had left. The first page was covered in her handwriting, rushed, slanted, smudged, the kind of writing you do when you fear someone might burst in at any second. "If something happens to me, tell the kids I love them. Tell them I tried." The next pages were dates, times, entries describing bruises she hid with makeup, threats whispered in her car, nights she was locked out of her own apartment. She wrote about running, hiding, the partner who controlled every cent she earned, every hour she slept, a man who promised to take the kids where no one could find them if she disobeyed. I felt my chest tighten as I flipped page after page. She had been living in terror. She didn't leave them because she didn't love them. She left them because she believed staying would get them killed. Then I reached the page that changed everything. A line written in thick, dark ink. "If he ever tells anyone I abandoned them, he's lying. He kept me from them. He took my phone, my ID, everything. If I disappear, he did it." I sat back, breath shaking. She hadn't just been running. She had been erased. And the man who erased her was still out there. Suddenly, the conversation from yesterday made horrifying sense. Her voice wasn't angry. It was scared. And she wasn't accusing me. She was repeating something she'd been forced to say. I closed the notebook, hands trembling. I needed help. I needed protection. And I needed the children to be far, far away before Sarah, and whoever controlled her, showed up. But fate doesn't wait for you to prepare. Just as I stood to wake the kids, my phone buzzed again. A message. No name. Just 4 words. She's already on her way. What arrived in my driveway that afternoon wasn't my daughter's car. It was something far worse. The officers marched me into a gray interview room that smelled like old paper and disinfectant. My wrists were still stiff from the cuffs and my shirt was torn where someone had grabbed me. They left me alone long enough to hear the hum of the ventilation system and the soft click of someone watching through the glass. I had been in union meetings tougher than this, but the weight in my chest wasn't fear of the law. It was fear for the 2 kids who had been ripped from their beds while still wiping sleep from their eyes. After what felt like an hour, the door opened and a man in a tailored Navy suit stepped inside, carrying a file so thick it could have braced a crooked table. He didn't look at me at first. He adjusted the blinds, straightened the chair, smoothed his lapel. Only then did he lift his eyes. "Mr. Parrish," he said as if tasting the name. "I'm Special Investigator Rowan Tate. I want to make something clear. This can all go a lot easier for you if you cooperate." "I have nothing to hide," I replied. He arched a brow. "That's what everyone says." He opened the file, tapping a page. "According to your daughter, you withheld her children for over a decade. She claims you refused to let her see them, refused to tell her where you lived, and even threatened her when she tried to regain custody." I leaned back, letting the absurdity wash over me. "That is a lie." Rowan folded his hands. "Then why didn't she contact you? Why didn't she see them for 10 years? "She left," I said quietly. "She left them on my porch and disappeared. And when she finally called me years later, she didn't want to know their favorite foods or if they had nightmares. She wanted to know where they were, like she was looking for evidence, not children." He watched me carefully, his expression unreadable. "She also claims you manipulated them, turned them against her." I swallowed hard. "You can ask them yourself. They're old enough to speak." He tapped the file again. "They're currently at a temporary child services facility. Your daughter requested limited contact for safety reasons." That hit me like a blow to the ribs. Safety reasons. As if I had ever raised a hand against those kids. As if the years of scraped knees I bandaged and science fairs I sat through and nights I held them through storms meant nothing. I leaned forward. "Did she tell you about her partner? Did she tell you why she left in the first place?" Rowan didn't blink. "She said you fabricated that." I laughed bitterly. "Of course she did." He shifted, relaxing slightly. "Mr. Parrish, we're not the enemy here. But right now the evidence is stacked against you. Your daughter has witnesses, friends who say she was terrified of you, messages claiming you demanded money before letting her see the children, statements alleging you threatened to disappear with them." I stared at him, stunned. "None of that is true." "Not a word." Rowan closed the file. "You have one opportunity. If you withheld anything, any conflict, any altercation, any agreement between you and your daughter, it's time to say it." My pulse slowed. A different kind of clarity settled in my bones. The envelope. The thing she begged me to hide 13 years earlier, swearing me to silence. The reason she vanished. The reason someone as calculating as her partner had called me with a warning. I looked him in the eye. "I didn't kidnap my grandchildren, but I did hide something from my daughter. Something she didn't want the world to see." His pen stilled. "What did you hide?" I hesitated. Not because I wanted to protect her, those days were gone, but because once I said it out loud, there would be no undoing it. Before I could answer, the door opened again. A young officer leaned in, whispering urgently into Rowan's ear. Rowan's eyes flicked to me, then back to the officer. When the door shut, he straightened his tie. "Mr. Parrish," he said slowly, "we need to pause for now. Something has come to our attention." I sat up. "What happened?" Rowan gathered his file. "Your daughter is making a new statement. A very different one." My breath caught. Different how? Why now? And what had she realized, or been forced to realize, in the last few minutes? Rowan reached the door, then stopped. "We will resume shortly, and when we do, you may want that envelope." The door clicked shut behind him. I exhaled, rubbing my aching wrists, feeling the weight of 13 years pressing toward the surface. Whatever Sarah was saying out there, it was going to change everything. But I didn't know yet that before the night ended, the truth would drag someone else into the spotlight, someone who had been hiding in plain sight the entire time. I did not sleep the night before the custody hearing. I lay on the sofa with the old blanket pulled over my legs, listening to the wind rattle the gutters and waiting for morning to arrive like a sentence I had already heard before it was spoken. Junie stayed up late with me, pretending to study but watching me the whole time. She kept tapping her pencil against her notebook, a nervous rhythm she did not even realize she had picked up from her mother all those years ago. Eli wandered in and out of the room, pacing, rearranging things, asking the same questions again and again. "Grandpa, they're not taking us, right?" "I will fight for you," I said. "That's all I can promise." He nodded, but I could see the fear in him. He'd lived through enough loss for one lifetime. By sunrise, we were dressed and waiting by the door. My neighbor, May, a woman with a spine carved from granite, offered to drive us. She had taken Junie to dance classes when my truck broke down, dropped off casseroles when times were lean, and once sat with Eli in an emergency room for 6 hours while I was stuck at work. She had become part of our strange, patched-together family. "You're not going alone," she said. "Not today." We arrived at the courthouse in Harbor Cross just as the sky brightened to a thin slice of gold. News vans lined the street, cables snaking across the pavement like roots searching for something rotten to feed on. Reporters waited with microphones raised. Someone shouted my name. A camera flashed. Junie slipped her hand into mine. Inside, the courtroom felt colder than the air outside. The benches were polished, the flags crisp, the walls too white. Eli sat between Junie and May, fidgeting with the zipper on his jacket. I lowered myself into the chair at the defendant's table, my shoulders heavy, my breath tight. Then the doors opened. Sarah walked in like every doubt I'd ever had been stitched into her coat. Her posture was fixed, her chin sharp, her steps rehearsed, yet there was something brittle beneath it. Her lawyer followed her, tall, immaculate, carrying a briefcase as if it were a verdict waiting to be handed down. And trailing behind them was the last person I expected, her partner. I had not seen him in more than a decade, but I felt the old reflex in my hands, the urge to clench, to brace, to shield the children even now. His smirk was smaller than before, but still there, coiled and poisonous. He glanced at the kids and whispered something to Sarah. Her jaw twitched. Before the judge entered, my attorney, Eamon Locklear, a man with tired eyes and a voice slow enough to command silence, leaned toward me. "You ready?" he asked. "No," I said, "but I'm here." The judge finally took her seat. Papers rustled. A gavel struck wood. Case of custody dispute between the petitioner, Sarah Locke, and the respondent, Gideon Parrish. The room shifted. Air tightened. Sarah's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client has been searching for her children for 10 years. She was misled into believing they were safe, when in fact Mr. Parrish withheld them, concealed them, and—" Eamon rose calmly. "Your Honor, we will address each claim, but before we begin, the respondent would like to enter into evidence an item previously kept sealed for the safety of all involved." My heartbeat kicked. This was it, the envelope, the one Sarah had asked me to hide the night she left. The one she cried over, begged me never to open. The one I kept under my floorboard for 13 years while the weight of it threatened to split me in two. Eamon placed it gently on the judge's bench. "Inside," he said, "is documentation written and signed by the petitioner. It details the danger posed by her partner at the time, the threats made against her and her children, and her explicit request that Mr. Parrish keep the children in his custody until she was safely able to return." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Sarah's lawyer stiffened. "That document is fabricated." "No," Eamon replied. "It is witnessed, dated, notarized, and includes an audio recording." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Parrish," she said, turning to me, "why did you not submit this earlier?" I swallowed, my throat tight. "Because she asked me not to," I said. "And because I hoped she'd come back better than she left." Sarah's face cracked then. Not much, just enough. Her eyes glistened at the edges, her fingers trembling as she gripped the table. "I never wrote that," she whispered. But even she didn't sound convinced. Her partner leaned forward and hissed, "Don't you dare!" Junie heard him. She stiffened. So did Eli. And that was when the judge noticed everything. The children shrinking from him, the fear in their eyes, the bruise-like shadow across Eli's expression whenever the man moved. The judge's voice cooled to steel. "Mr. Parrish, Mr. Locklear, continue." As Eamon began opening the envelope, unfolding the truth piece by piece, watching Sarah's composure drain like water from a cracked cup, one fact crystallized in my mind. This was never just about custody. It was about something darker, something Sarah had been running from for years, and something her partner was terrified would come to light. Whatever was inside that envelope wasn't just going to save me. It was going to expose him. What that envelope revealed next would turn the entire courtroom, not just the case, upside down. Because the truth sealed 13 years ago was about to name someone none of us expected. I used to think justice came from courts and gavels and tidy lines of evidence. But standing there on that quiet morning, sunlight breaking over the ridge, my daughter shaking in the gravel driveway while my grandchildren clung to my sleeves, I understood something different. Justice is sometimes just the truth spoken out loud, finally in daylight. Sarah couldn't look at me at first. Her hands trembled, her breathing uneven, eyes darting between me and the officers who were now slowly backing away, calling off the team. The cameras had been turned off. The lawyer who marched in as if ready for war was suddenly very busy closing his briefcase. Junie stood between us, wiping her cheeks with her sleeve. "Mom," she whispered, voice thin but steady. "Why did you tell them Grandpa kidnapped us?" Sarah winced like the question was a blade. I didn't know," she stammered. He told me you weren't safe here. He told me Dad kept you from me." The he hung in the air like smoke. All of us knew who she meant. The man she'd run from. The man who had spent a decade poisoning the edges of her memory until she couldn't tell truth from survival. I stepped closer, slow, giving her time. "Sarah," I said softly, "nobody kept you from your kids. You left them with me. You asked me to keep them safe, and I did." Her eyes filled. Her jaw quivered. "I don't remember that night. I remember fear. I remember his voice. I remember running, and then everything fell apart." She pressed her palms to her temples like she was trying to hold her thoughts together. "He told me," she said shakily, "that you'd hide them just to hurt me, that you wanted to punish me, that you'd raise them to hate me." Junie stepped forward, voice breaking. "Grandpa never once said anything bad about you." That struck Sarah harder than anything I could have said. Her shoulders collapsed. She covered her face with her hands and sobbed. Eli, quiet until now, tugged her coat. "Mom, we didn't hate you. We just didn't know where you went." Sarah fell to her knees and pulled both kids into her arms. Her cries were messy and human and years overdue. Junie held her hesitantly at first, then fully. Eli pressed his forehead to her shoulder. Three silhouettes tangled together in a grief too old for any of them. I turned away, giving them space. My knees felt weak. Relief and ache mixed in my chest. 13 years of effort, fear, exhaustion, and hope had led to this moment, proof that the truth had survived. The lead officer approached quietly. "Sir, we're sorry. This shouldn't have happened the way it did." I nodded. "Just keep the kids out of the reports. They don't need more attention." He exchanged a glance with his partner. "We'll make sure of it." When I stepped back toward the family, Sarah lifted her face. Her eyes were red, but there was clarity returning to them, like someone opening curtains after a long storm. "Dad," she whispered, can we start over?" It wasn't perfect, it wasn't polished, but it was honest. I knelt beside her, wincing as my bones complained. "Starting over is allowed, but it's not immediate. Healing's a long walk, Sarah. We take it one day at a time." Junie nodded fiercely. "We can try." Eli leaned against me. "Yeah, we're still a family. A family cracked, bruised, imperfect, but still standing." We spent the next hours talking. Really talking. Sarah explained what the years had done to her. How fear had been her leash, how shame had been the lock. She'd believed the lies because she didn't believe she deserved anything better. But seeing her kids, healthy, educated, loved, shattered something inside her. "Everything I thought I knew," she murmured. "It was all wrong." "It wasn't wrong," I said gently. "It was taken from you." When the sun dipped behind the trees, she looked at me with something like hope. "Dad, can I come home for a while? Just until I get my mind straight." She swallowed. I want to know them. My kids. Junie didn't look away. We can try, she said again. Softer this time. Braver. Eli nodded. We can show you the good stuff first. I almost laughed. The first true laugh I'd had in months. Then it's settled, I said. We walk forward, slowly, together. And for the first time in 13 years, I felt the house behind us, battered doorway and all, become something more than mine alone. It became a beginning, not a perfect one, but a real one. And if you've been listening this far, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what time it is where you're watching from. It helps more than you know.